Wide Angle Conversations, DEI Talks, an initiative of Life by Design with Taruna Aggarwal, raising awareness about the importance of diversity and inclusion and bringing to you insights and best practices from DEI advocates and champions.
Welcome to Wide Angle Conversations, DEI Talks. I'm your host, Taruna Aggarwal, and I'm in conversation today with Manvi Sushil. Hi, Manvi.
Hi, Taruna. I love the name of the series, Wide Angle Conversations, and by design. I think it's such an interesting and intriguing way to kickstart this conversation. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you so much. So, Manvi is an HR leader with 15 years of line and consulting experience with cross-country exposure. She's passionate about DEI, CSR, and innovation, and she focuses on curating functional solutions for business needs. Currently, Manvi is the lead HR partner for GSK, focusing on building an inclusive, high-trust culture. Manvi, once again, welcome to Wide Angle Conversations.
Thank you so much.
Right. So, Manvi, to begin with, I know you're an HR practitioner who's passionate about DEI. What are the commonalities that you see in these two functions in an organization?
Taruna, traditionally, as the function has evolved, it has been a master of a few trades. HR as a function. And I really enjoy talking to people about what HR is and what HR isn't. But in a sense, in summary, HR is about really the business of making sure there is a seamless people machinery in place, which supports your business goals. So with that broad definition, HR has been juggling a few balls, to ensure that the people machinery exists and it works. And I've enjoyed doing that. So if we have to look at it as two different aspects, maybe two sides of the same coin, but really two different important sides needing two focused approaches and efforts, I think DEI is less of a function, more of a philosophy and a way of life. So I think my biggest DEI leader in the organization is the CEO of the company, whichever business that you're talking about. Because if he doesn't embrace the philosophy of DEI, possibly the volumes of the sales that the CEO or she or he is tracking, or the profitability that she wants on her business or a balance sheet may not be so sustainable. So to leave a legacy as a CEO, she would really need to embrace DEI and her role there. That's how I look at HR as a function and DEI as an important philosophy.
Yeah, that is so true, and that's what we have seen. If we just look at it as a function, then we go one step forward, two steps back. But as you so rightly said, if it's a part of the culture of the organization, then it becomes the philosophy, and then it becomes that much more easy and seamless to achieve, right? So traditionally, as you have said so, but the fact is that these two roles are somewhere seen as one, but now there is a push to separate the two, and we are seeing organizations in Asia now coming up with DEI departments, and they're separating specific KPIs, etc. So what challenges do you see as this space opens up in Asia, in terms of, like, are we prepared when it comes to the availability of talent, and what are the specific learning and development needs that we need to be cautious of?
Yeah, Taruna, like many other functions, a focused approach is needed to DEI. So I think the role being a standalone role now is symbolic of that. Organizations are really, and one can debate whether late in the game or early in the curve, have woken up and said that, listen, this needs a focused approach. So a role is symbolic of that approach. I wouldn't read a lot into that, except the fact that there is a need for focus, and in the midst of multiple priorities, it shouldn't get missed out, because if you will just leave DEI to that one person or the DEI function, and like I said earlier, you wouldn't really see a lot of results in the balance sheet. Your CEO needs to walk the talk. Your leadership team needs to be embracing DEI, and maybe the focus approach helps you to do that. from a perspective of career and demand and supply in terms of the roles available and the talent available, it's like any other sigmoid curve. When you start afresh in terms of an approach, you need talent which is also very ready to put their hand up and say, these are muscles that I want to grow, these are capabilities that I want to grow. So it's an evolving space. I think the one where you have the humility to say that, hey, I'm trying to learn, are the best talent to have in this space.
That is so true, Manvi. But yeah, that would be the ideal state to be in, where people who have the passion are actually taken on by organizations, hired by organizations to take on this function and develop it. But many a times, organizations are also looking at that function and that the knowledge or that capability or some experience behind. So I know and I agree with you that this is like a catch-22 situation where somebody who's passionate should be given the opportunity, and there are many times and that doesn't really happen because the organizations are looking out for certain things, certain experience. But that's the ideal state, and I think yes, we should give opportunities to people who are really passionate about it, and that's the way to move the agenda.
That's true. Taruna, you have a job description for every role, right? And even a job description for a DEI role would read something like X amount of years, leading the function for, and having achieved, say, X% of gender diversity, working in the LGBTQI space, knowledge and experience with people with disabilities. So that's going to be a fair job description. When you're sitting across talents, you realize there is no perfect candidate in this space currently, because you wouldn't have anybody ticking all the boxes. So the way I would really sort of suggest a talent to embrace this is that if you have the passion, like you said, like this is the ideal state, and you have the willingness to learn about all the historically excluded groups, you have the willingness to learn what makes them tick, you have the willingness to teach managers to embrace diversity and also learn inclusive behaviors, then you're there.
Yeah, so I think another way to put it is that the organizations and the talent teams should be inclusive to start with, to begin with, having that to build the DEI agenda, be inclusive in terms of the recruitment, and don't kind of get too focused on the existing experience. Well, yeah, thank you so much for that perspective. So, currently, as you are talking about inclusion and the inclusive high trust culture that we are all focusing on, what does that really mean to you? And how does it reflect in an organization?
The high trust culture is, to me, a little bit about waking up as employees in the morning, and wanting to come to work where you believe that everybody means well for you. And from an employment perspective, employment doesn't just today, in today's VUCA world, it doesn't just stand for your manager or your hierarchy up the line. It stands for the people that you work with, especially in matrix global organizations that we stand for. It's really about do I see the best in the person that I'm working with, and am I in my own behavior bringing out that best side. So to me, if everybody learns the art and the science of being their best self and bringing out the best in others, it's just the ripple effect of a high trust culture. So you could work in an organization with 50,000 people, you could work in an organization with 100 people. It doesn't matter what volumes you're operating with. I think what matters is that when you're talking to that one individual, are you creating the most value in that conversation, in that dialogue, in that heart to heart exchange, in the way you teach, in the way you learn, the way you say, hey, my bad, I messed up, or the way you say, is this something that excites you? Rather than just pushing your opinion down somebody's throat, because these are just little shifts, but they go a long way in creating a workplace where people want to wake up and come to work and give it their best. And when they want to give it their best, your balance sheet automatically goes zoom up. So yeah.
How does an organization or a DI practitioner, what does that person needs to do really to be able to create that high trust culture where people are bringing their full self, their whole self or authentic self? uh, what do we need to do?
Yeah, I think the how of that would be maybe possibly according to me like three pillars there. Like, am I being fair? So like be fair would be the first simplified mantra to be. So I think from a fairness perspective, it's not about everybody getting all opportunities, because that's not what you can achieve practically. I think it's about you know the right people getting the opportunity to shine in the right roles, or the right benefits, however you see equity as. And it's important here to understand the differentiation between equity and equality, and apply it at a workplace. And that will reflect on the way your job descriptions are written and they read. It will reflect in your policies, and is it inclusive of people with different needs. It will reflect in the kind of flexibility that you have for people to manage their life and work and integrate both of them. It will read in so many other aspects in which decisions are made on employee life cycle needs, like a promotion or a raise. So those aspects to me would be under the pillar of being fair. Yeah. So that makes me feel as an employee, hey, this is bringing the best out of me. I think the second pillar is about being firm. I think this is often that we sort of push under the carpet, because behaviors are difficult to change. They're also difficult to own. And behaviors are something that need for constant exercise of muscle. It's like going to the gym every day consistently. And so being firm is about being firm with yourself, like making sure that your unconscious biases are known to you as much as possible. And if because it's not always possible 100% of the time, let's face it, we're human beings, not so perfect, flawed. When we encounter them, do we have the humility to say, yeah, this is probably my bias playing out, and do I invite a different view, consult widely to ensure that the decision that I'm making or the behavior that I'm demonstrating and exhibiting comes from a conscious muscle getting exercised. So that is the being firm with. And if we are firm with ourselves about this aspect, about the behaviors that we choose to exhibit, knowing that behaviors are a choice, and not coming from a place of tendency, that becomes really important. And if I have to extend it to others, when we're leaders, people managers, people in professions like me, where I'm able to touch more lives than just mine or a few around me, I think this is to be considered like an opportunity to role model. It has to be considered as an opportunity to teach. It has to be considered as an opportunity to coach, to demonstrate how one can bring the best behavior out of someone else as well. So in the organization perspective, being firm is really important when it comes to behaviors. And I think like people use the word mindsets here, but I think like we're not in the business of changing mindsets, because it's really very, very difficult. In the iceberg things seem a thing. Only if we can touch behaviors, it's fair. It's fair, and it's value creating in the organization perspective. The third one I'd like to say is like be more. Be more when it comes to from the perspective of either keeping like a more ambitious targets for yourself when it comes to embracing inclusion and embracing diversity. When somebody says, hey, you're at a 25% gender diversity, why don't you stretch yourself and make it 40? So let's just say, okay, let's put a number to it. Maybe not for the number's sake, maybe for the sake of the philosophy, maybe the sake for your balance sheet, whatever the business case that you bring to the table. But let's measure it, because if you measure it, you're progressing. So if somebody says 25 to 40, embrace it. Even if you end up doing 30, even if you end up missing the bonus, that is attached to your 40, etc. Just embrace it, because when you do, you're really embracing, the being more philosophy in DEI. And that being more philosophy actually also extends to beyond your numbers or ratios of historically excluded groups. I think it extends to this mindset of high growth, where you're always progressing, you're thinking the glass is half full, you're always wanting to embrace different ideas, create innovation, think about what's a better way to do this, solve the same problems rather than stick to your gut all the time. And that's I think a very progressive way of making humankind tick. Mhm.
So true. Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that I've two things, that it is individuals have, their accountability and the vulnerability of the person or the leadership to be able to say, to kind of to accept and to be able to be ready to change their own behaviors, as you said, maybe mindset shifting is, again, it's a very personal human thing, and it is all every individual will respond or respond differently. So I think it's about what I heard you say in this whole thing is that everybody is a part of this if we can call it a movement. Everybody is involved, everybody is a part of it, to be able to create that inclusive high trust culture. Leaders need to be there, and every employee should also be having having that environment where they are able to bring their best and stretch themselves, right?
Thank you for summarizing.
You were just talking about how things have changed, so that brought me to the last 3 years, which have been really, really tremendous for all of us. COVID, and then other developments that happened in the world around us, that has changed a lot of things, right? Our outlook on DEI, on human to human, and also the future of work in India as well as in Asia and the world over. How have you seen this impacting the conversations around DEI?
I think Taruna, COVID actually taught us three very important things, and I hope it stays with us. Just like every adversity has a silver lining. I think one for COVID was that human beings were pushed into a corner, and the pause made us reflect. At least some of us. And I feel like the first important aspect that it led to was a lot of empathy. The world united as much as it could, with all the humanity and possible across nations, in solidarity to really ensure that, from a human crisis perspective, countries, come together, nationalities come together, people support each other through these times. And that empathy should stay with us, I feel, because um, I think we should forget the horrors of COVID. India especially went through such a difficult time, but I don't think I will ever let go of, the empathy that it taught me. And I'm sure I can speak for a lot of us there. The second piece of it was the importance of flexibility. The world was working, but from home. And the world didn't stop. Businesses, of course, went through their ups and downs, and there were decisions taken which are now getting reversed. And there were decisions that were taken at that time which you just realize, oh, we can live with this because it helps us save some money on the balance sheet. Like, I know a lot of people who haven't really gone back to office full time yet, but I know a lot of people who are trying to go back in a different and a hybrid avatar. But essentially, wasn't it COVID which taught us that these changes were possible, like newer ways of doing business? And if it was possible, then the people who really need that flexibility to integrate their work life, whether you're talking about it from the perspective of women in like coming back to work after long sabbaticals that they needed for their children, or things at home, or you're talking about men and women who are both single parents, or you're talking about people who made unconventional choices to raise children, or foster children, or even like pet parents who found it very difficult to tell at the workplace that listen, my dog is unwell and I have to stay at home, etc. I think all kinds of diverse needs can be catered to with the mindset of flexibility, and that's something that COVID has taught us. I think first was empathy, second is flexibility without letting the outcome suffer. And the whole concept of gig economy has become so much more prevalent thanks to COVID, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And I think the third aspect which is taught us is communication. Whether it was the country or the enterprises that we all belong to, or whether small or big businesses, we all learned better ways of communicating. And I'm not just talking about mode of communication. I'm talking about how to make your feelings felt, how to get people come towards common vision, how to help them fight resilience and unite them under that one objective. It used to be so much business as usual earlier, but I think this third muscle that we've learned to really exercise a lot more than earlier is communication. And I think one thing that we've all learned is there's nothing called over communication, there's nothing called oversharing, there is nothing called over vulnerability. Do more of it if you can. So I think these three things from a COVID perspective have been really valuable for us, and they are amazing muscles for diversity, equity, inclusion. And if we continue to exercise them and exercise our muscle memory on them, nothing can stop us from climbing Everest.
True. I know all these 3 points that you said, the open communication, the flexibility, and and empathy. I think these are what is needed for creating or building inclusion and equity and inclusion. Those are the main ingredients of it. So COVID as such has kind of made us move faster in that direction. So we should now keep at it as we go forward, and as you said, not forget the lessons that we have learned. Manvi, what are, talking about diversity, what are the pillars of diversity that you think will be the focus of the DEI agenda in this changed world?
Yeah, I think Taruna, what I said earlier, the be fair, be firm, and be more. I know I simplified a lot of complicated models that we have out there into very simple terms, but to me, if we continue to do more of that, like approach our systems, policies, processes, our written material which is available to employees and to external candidates with the lens of is it reading inclusion, is it reading equity, is it helping us embrace different kinds of diversity. If you change your specs lens to that lens, then that really helps. And if you're really firm with the behaviors that you expect in a workplace, whether it is while attracting talent or retaining talent, both are really important from the firmness perspective. And also, like the whole concept of uncovering your own biases and looking at every day as an opportunity to show your best self as behaviors. I think that's the second. And the third one is like stretching yourself, being more in terms of your target, being more in terms of your mindset, being more in terms of leadership accountability, because that is so important. If there is no leader I have come across who says she or he does not embrace diversity. Nobody would say, oh no, I don't think DEI is important. In today's day and world, nobody will stand up and openly say it, but there is a reason why it doesn't happen. And it's important to look inward when you're a leader, rather than blame the external environment. This is a snippet of a conversation in a previous avatar between me and a leader, where he's saying, women are very important in the workplace, but just not on the manufacturing floor. How will they do it? How will they do it? How will they lift this, big weight that they're supposed to be lifting? So many questions, intellectualizing them, like proper binary. I think our engineering education makes us so good with intellectualizing things and asking binary questions, very good questions. And it's all boiled down to this one answer. This leader felt that women cannot be physically strong. That this leader felt that men and women working together will create more problems for us than than opportunities. This leader felt that it's not safe for women to be going at night and night shifts, etc. It was about how this leader felt, and that's why we weren't able to do the gender inclusion on the shop floor. And these questions were fantastic questions. They were not coming from a bad intent. They were coming, and if we just take these three questions, the first question about will women be able to do it, was just coming from a lack of knowledge. That women, the second question about, whether it's safe for women to come into, coming from a very protective, paternalistic, aspect for, the opposite gender. And the third one, whether it's safe for men and women to work together, and it will create more problems, was coming from a previous experience that had, completely, nothing was coming from a bad place of intent, but the questioning of your own biases, your own previous experiences, your own lack of knowledge, your own paternal instincts, because I have 2 daughters at home. That was so important, to be able, for us to be able to hire that first woman on the shop floor, create a role model out of that, and then end up at a 25% women on the shop floor kind of ratio. So that, being more in that leadership accountability is also super important, because there's no lack of intent. It's only, how you approach the answers to some of those questions.
Now, yeah, that gap, as you said, between the intention is always there, and the right intention is there, but then how do you act on that? And so, and then that place in between is where you really need to look at your biases and, your keep a check on your behavior. So I think, as you said, rightly, leadership has a really, really big role, and every individual needs to be, looking at it from that lens of inclusion and empathy, as you said. So yeah, that's good. So, and in Asia right now, in Asia we currently have multiple generations working in the workplace, and people with the COVID experience have now, purpose has become more important. People live for purpose, right? So in that changed scenario, that's what do you think any specific pillar of diversity, whether it be gender, be it the age, or those kind of things, what would be? I know you are saying that we have to be inclusive and we have to look at everything in the same light. But what would be the focus of organizations in terms of the pillars that organizations will be looking at making?
You mean like which historically excluded group should be most important?
Yeah, historically excluded, or the ones that new emerging groups that we have right now. We have millennials working in millennials working with baby boomers, and so there is a lot of that age, the inclusion of the different age groups in the workplace, right? This is the time where we have all 3 or 4 generations working in the organization. So how do we kind of manage that?
Yeah, I think, Taruna, this answer will completely depend on the context of the business. I don't think any one size fits all is my perspective. For example, when I was in a previous avatar, we consciously decided that we will start with people with disabilities.
Okay.
And we said that there was a reason, there was a business case for it. We said that we are predominantly manufacturing, and what you need is a high skill in terms of your knowledge in your hands in the kind of machines that we were looking at. But it's okay if the people can't, they have a verbal disability or they have a hearing disability. We can always make it more inclusive for them. We can have sign language, we can have apps which will help them understand what other people are saying, etc. So we actually enabled our environment and leverage the strengths of the people who couldn't hear or probably couldn't talk like we do, but they had amazing knowledge, technical ability, and were able to use their hands very skillfully, because a few senses not working made their other senses a lot more sharp and enabling. So from a business case perspective, we leveraged that group and really worked very hard, went from an infrastructure perspective, access perspective, from the perspective of sensitization of the workforce at large to be more inclusive, from the perspective of making sure we are attracting the right guys, and the way we are attracting them is making them feel more welcomed into the organization. All of that we did really well. There was a very strong business case for it. But possibly in a different avatar, it's gender, which is a very, very important one, because maybe in that particular industry, gender is got a particular business case. It's majorly underrepresented. It's been a historically excluded group in the past. So I know a lot of companies have started to do about the whole pride activities about including LGBTQIA plus, because there's a business case for it. You miss out on some amazing talent just because they don't feel comfortable talking about their sexual preferences in the workplace, especially in the field of advertising, finance. There's so many people who are so creative, innovative. If just because of a different sexual preference, they may not choose your workplace because your workplace isn't embracing. They may have different work of offers. So I will feel and even from a millennial perspective, I think that is maybe one thing that unites a lot of organizations today, having different generations operating in the workplace, and companies will choose to do that if they feel that this is creating communication gaps or generation gaps in the way the chain of commands work or the way the communication works. If you have no millennial managers and you have Gen X managers, so how does that work? So I wouldn't really point at this one thing and say, oh, this is most critical. I will say, and my suggestion to the DEI professionals, HR professionals, leaders watching this conversation would be, figure out what your business needs at this stage. Where is it that you're really missing out the talent representation which will add value to your business? Be practical, use the Pareto's principle. You cannot spread your wings high and try and do everything. So but whatever you choose to do it really well. Do it do it so well that there's no one else who's doing it better than you. Yeah, so that's going to be my advice.
That's right. And so, I mean, that is reflecting to me, that is reflecting how you work also. So, do your best and more. So, what would you want to see yourself achieving in the next, say, 2 to 3 years? Yeah.
But Taruna, this question is something that I think about every day. What is it that I want to do in the next short term and long term horizon? I think one thing I really want to learn is from this new generation is about really using very creative ways to express themselves. I wouldn't mind getting a reverse mentor and learn how to express myself so much more simply, more creatively. I think my generation, when we learned, got our education and did our first few years in the career, we were taught to be very formal, use big words, intellectualize things. You sound intelligent that way, and it became like a muscle that you develop. But I'm realizing that the millennials today, they are so much simpler with their use of words, but they pass on the message in such a beautiful way which touches hearts. Yeah, and I really want to learn that. As a I know it will take time because you have a conditioning that you need to overcome, and I think it will help me connect with different audiences or different cultures a lot better. So that's one very personalized goal for myself. I think the other thing I want to really achieve is be able to work across languages and linguistic comforts. So, my study of the Spanish language is helping me do that. You will notice that both of these goals for myself are to do with very personal learning aspects, because I really believe that if people really work on the learning, work on making themselves more agile when it comes to learning, humble about approaching the world around them, keeping their leadership style as unassuming as possible, they can really do wonders. It's like deeper the roots, the bigger the the fruit. The bigger your branches go all over, the sweeter the fruits. I think for me, working on the roots is really important. Every day. So in the next few years, I would really want my roots to get deeper when it comes to connecting with different kinds of people, touching their hearts and building like genuine bonds of trust and friendship.
Wow, that's amazing, Manvi. I think you live and breathe inclusion as it should be defined, really. Awesome. This has been a very, very invigorating conversation for me, and I'm sure for the audience who are listening out there. So, thank you so much for sharing your insights, and wish you all the best on your journey and on achieving your goals and making the world a better place.
Thank you, Taruna. Thank you for making me think so deep and hard. I really appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Manvi.